this. I will probably wait till the very end to answer questions because two reasons. One is there's most likely a slide that addresses the question you're going to ask later in the presentation. And the other is just, I know sometimes people are afraid to ask questions when they know they're being recorded. So maybe we'll wait till the end and we can turn off the recording and just do an open Q&A. But my name is Caleb Marsh. I'm the admissions director at the Postbac program at Temple University in Philadelphia. However, I'm really here just to talk about Postbac programs in general. I'm also co-chair of a national organization for Postbac programs, and so not only am I representing Temple, but I'm representing a lot of programs today. And so we're gonna go through some very basic information. So the first couple of slides, don't worry, I'm really just taking this from the basics. And so assuming that y'all don't know anything about Postbac programs at all, and then we'll work into some of the details later. So just kind of, if you do know about what a Postbac program is and you do know what it means, just bear with me. I promise we'll get to the meat of this later, but I just don't want to assume everybody knows the things that other people know. So with that said, I say that because the first slide is literally, what is a Postbac program? And by definition, Postbac, it means after baccalaureate degree. Postbac, it literally means any program taken after you complete your baccalaureate studies. But the AAMC, the Association of American Medical Colleges, has a much more specific meaning for a Postbac. And this is a program that is designed specifically to support the transition to professional schools, such as medical school, as well as enhance an applicant's competitiveness for admission. And so I think this is also a really good point to bring up that post-baccalaureate programs don't necessarily always just support med. They can also support pre-dental students, pre-PA students, students that want to go to veterinary school. There's a ton of different Postbac programs out there that can help you accomplish a lot of different health professions goals that are not just medicine. So I think we need to think about that too. There's also a difference between what would be considered a Postbac program or just Postbac courses. So literally any course you take after you complete an undergraduate degree is called a Postbac course, unless of course it's part of a graduate program, then it would be a grad course. And we'll talk about some of those little differences later. But you can take Postbac courses without having to be part of a Postbac program. And we'll parse that out in a moment. But those are just the basics of kind of what a Postbac is. The next step we'll talk about is finding a program. And there are a few ways to do that. The easiest, and I think the one that most people are familiar with, is the AAMC's Find a Post-Baccalaureate Pre-Medical Program website. So it does exactly what it says it's going to do. You go to this website. There are 278 programs, maybe even more now listed. And it allows you to kind of sort by a number of different things. And you can sort by whether it's a public institution or a private institution. Are they a certificate granting program? Do they grade as an undergraduate or graduate course? Do they accept DACA applicants? So there's a lot of different ways that you can look at this. Even you can look at it by state. And you can use this as a tool to kind of explore what's out there. They also have them divided up by academic record enhancer versus career changer, and we'll talk about that as well. Another place you can find it is Postbac CAS. Postbac CAS, if you're familiar with application services like ACOMIS, or you're familiar with CASPA or ADSAS, these are the PA school DO applications and dental applications. They're owned by a company called Liaison. And Liaison is this massive conglomerate that has a ton of different application services. But Postbac CAS is one of those services. And it has about 90 programs on that. And a lot of times there's overlap between what you see on the AAMC site and what you would see on Postbac CAS. But Postbac CAS is, as it's described, it is a common application service for Postbac programs. And so you can not only find a lot of programs there, but you can also use it to explore and also apply to programs as well. And then of course, there's good old Google. You can just Google search post-bac programs. I think if you type in post-bac programs in Philadelphia, you'll get things that come up there. And a lot of times they direct you to either Postbac-Cast or the AAMC website or program-specific websites. So these are all viable ways to find programs, and these are probably the most common ways to find a post-bac program. So this is where we're going to start talking about choosing a post-bac program. So now that you kind of know what a post-bac is, what it can help you accomplish, where you can go to find a post-bac program, we'll talk about the next few slides about how to sort through those programs and find the ones that fit you and your needs the best. And so I'm not 100% certain of what everyone in the room looks like and what their academic background looks like, but the two primary types of post-bac programs are academic record enhancers, and these are for folks with science backgrounds. So these are typically people that as undergrads were pre-med, pre-PA, pre-dent. You were already pre-something. You finished your undergraduate career, and you said, I think of it like a runway. You're trying to get airborne, and you have freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior year, and you're not quite airborne yet, and you need a little more runway to get up there. And an academic record enhancer can extend that runway for you, help you, give you another opportunity to prove the rigorous coursework, and it can help demonstrate that you can do the work and hopefully prove to a professional school that your academic record isn't maybe what you were during your freshman and sophomore year, but looks more like what it did during your junior, senior, and post-bac years. So that's one way. So I assume that if you're an undergraduate student at UMD and you've interacted with the health professions advising office there, you're probably an academic record enhancer, but there are also career changers. And career changers would be folks that literally have no background in science at all. So at Temple, we have both of these types of programs. And in our career changer program, we have people that used to be lawyers and teachers and rabbis and accountants and all kinds of backgrounds and different jobs. Or sometimes they haven't even been into the workforce. So for example, we had a student, she was a psychology major. She started out her freshman year, she took Bio 1, and then she said, I don't think I want to go to med school anymore. I'm going to back out of Bio 1. I'm going to finish my psych degree. But by the time her senior year rolled around, she said, I think I want to go back to school and spend a year in a post-bac program, getting all of my prereqs. And so she was essentially entering a program as a non-science person. So these are the two primary types of programs that we have at Temple, but that you'll find at almost any post-bac program across the country. Some post-bac programs are only an academic record enhancer, some are only career changers, and some like ours have both. So that would be something that you would want to find out what they do and what fits you best. The next thing that you want to look at is a program, a post-bac program, structured or unstructured? And usually what that means is they're based on these questions down here. So for example, how long does the program take to complete? So if a program were to say, we're a 12-month May to May career changer post-bac program, to me, I would immediately think that's a structured program. They have a very definitive timeline by which they want you to take the courses. They're a cohort-based program, and they really do build it in a very structured way. Is it a full-time program? If it's a full-time program, again, it's probably a structured program. So a student might say, can I work while I'm in this program? And if the program says you can, but it probably wouldn't be best, it's probably more of a structured program. There are programs that you can just take courses at your leisure at whatever time frame you want in a very unstructured manner, at which you could work and do a lot of different things while you were doing a post-bac program. So you just have to ask yourself, can I work? Do I need to work? Do I have the means to take out a loan or get financial aid and just quit my job? Like a lot of our career changer folks, they just quit their job, they move to Philadelphia, and they dive into the one-year post-bac program. Also, what kind of support will I receive? Unstructured and structured programs both can have support. But when I talk about support, I really mean two things. One is people like myself, people like Courtney, people like Wendy that are advisors that can help guide you. And a lot of post-bac programs have built-in advising and support in that manner, but also support in ways from the institution, things like tutoring, specialized learning, standardized test prep, things like that. And then also, if it's a cohort-based model, so meaning you come up with your own cohort, you can also find a lot of support through a cohort model. Because a lot of times people will say, well, I was a teacher, or, I want to do an extra year to increase my academic performance, and I want to go back to school, and all of my family thinks that seems pretty crazy. But when they get to the post-bac program and they realize everyone in their cohort is in the exact same situation, I think it gives them a lot of confidence to say, it's not really that weird that I'm doing this. This is actually a fairly normal thing, and lots of people are doing this. Another thing you have to ask yourself, are clinical experiences part of the program? So are labs outside of the classroom, are those part of the program? Will I get the opportunity to shadow at a hospital? So for example, at our program, clinical experiences are a small part, not a very large part of the program at all. We really focus on rigorous academic preparation, but there are other structured programs, some that I can think of that are 2 years long. For example, I'm thinking of one at Texas Tech's medical school. The first year you do rigorous coursework, and the second year you're basically a lab assistant for the medical school students. So you help set up the cadaver labs and you help set up the machinery. And so it's a two-year program that's designed to hit both of these things. So that's, again, you'd have to ask yourself, do I want to do a 1-year program? Do I want to do a 2-year program? And do I need all those extra things involved? Is standardized test prep included? So do they have MCAT, DAT, or GRE test prep built into the curriculum? Our program, for example, does, and a lot of programs do. If that's something that you need, then that's something that you would want to make sure a post-bac program has. Will my classes be with just post-bac students? So I mentioned the cohort model. At some schools, you come to their program and they say, great, you can take intro to bio, you can take intro to chem as a career changer, and then you end up in the same classroom with freshmen and sophomores that are also taking intro to chem and intro to bio. If that doesn't sound good to you, then you might want to look at a cohort model that has the opportunity for you to be in post-bac classes with just post-bac students that are in the exact same situation that you're in. And then again, does this program support the health profession that I need? So do they support dent, PA, vet, med, etc.? If you're not interested in the others and you're just interested in med, then you're probably in good luck, because there's a lot of medical post-bac programs out there. So these are, again, 2 different ways that programs can differentiate themselves. I think of this as kind of like a gym, and that you can have a really nice gym with a lot of equipment and a lot of great things in that gym to use. A structured program would have personal trainers. It would have a lot of guidance. It would have a lot of things that would help kind of direct you through the gym, motivate you, and keep you moving. And if you say, you know what, I don't need that, I can just go in the gym, I'm highly motivated, I can do this on my own, then maybe you would need something more like an unstructured program. But you really have to ask yourself, what are you capable of doing on your own? And would you need something that's more structured, and would you need more of the support? Another thing you want to look at is non-certificate, certificate, or degree granting. These are other ways that programs are broken down. Will I get a degree when I finish the post-bac program? So for example, at our program, you do not. Will I get a certificate? And in our program, you do get a certificate. But I'll tell you, the year before last and the years before that, there was no certificate at our program. And then you have to ask yourself, do I need a certificate? So one of the things that we've noticed when our program changed from a non-certificate granting program to a certificate granting program is it didn't impact our students' ability to get into professional school at all. And so this really is just preference to you. So there is no, as far as I can tell, no advantage to a certificate over a non-certificate program, unless, for example, I'm thinking of one of the students we had, he wanted to take something back to his mother so he could show her He had finished this rigorous 1-year program. So for him, having that certificate was really important because he just wanted to make sure he had a physical piece of paper to demonstrate what he had just completed. Degree granting, you will only find degree granting programs as part of special master's programs. And so we'll talk about that in a moment too. But unless it's a special master's program, most post-bac programs will either be non-degree granting non-certificate programs or non-degree granting certificate programs. Next, we'll talk about how they're graded. And this is a confusing thing to a lot of students. And I'll show you why it's confusing. And I'll tell you why or show you why we might get different answers from different people that we talk to about how this is managed. So if you go to a program that chooses to do the grading as an undergraduate grade, meaning that if you want to improve your undergraduate grade point average, the only way to continue to improve that is if the undergraduate course, if the coursework at a post-bac program is graded as an undergraduate course. If it's graded as a graduate course, it still can demonstrate many of the same things. It can still demonstrate that you've learned the material, that you can master this rigorous coursework, and that you can prove that you can do well in medical school or dental school or PA school, but it will not impact your undergraduate GPA. So if the goal is to improve your undergraduate GPA, then a graduate program may not be something that you would want to do. Now, if you have a 3.5 or 3.4, maybe a graduate program is okay. If you have a 3.2, 3.3, maybe an undergraduate program you might be better suited for that. And I'll show you specifically on this next slide why. So what we're looking at right here is this is what people like me see when we get an application from a student. We don't just get one grade. So I think a lot of times people think, I gotta improve my science GPA, I gotta improve my overall GPA. And that's 100% true, no doubt. But I think it's a lot more nuanced than that. And I think this is important for you guys to see this. So this is a student who in their freshman year had a 3.9, and then they improved it a little bit, right? And then they stumbled a little bit, and then they even improved it even more. And so they finished their baccalaureate undergraduate GPA at a 3.30. This student also at some point went to graduate school and got 27 hours of graduate coursework. This student got a 3.45 in grad school. Great. So down here, you can see the overall GPA jumped up a little bit, right? Because of the graduate coursework. But we can see that the student's undergraduate GPA did not go up. And the reason the student's undergraduate GPA did not go up is because the student, after they graduated, took graduate coursework. Of course, this student at the time doesn't have any post-bac grades because this student was an applicant to our program. But when the student completes our program, hopefully the student will have 25 credit hours of a 4.0, and that will improve this cumulative undergraduate GPA, which if you keep scrolling down this, which is not in my screen capture, you'll see that it's also broken down into freshman, sophomore, junior, science, non-science, and science as we get lower. And so you can actually see the change in the science GPA. A school also has the ability to sort by these local GPAs and by prerequisite GPAs. And so this is something that you need to think about when kind of strategizing. So for example, if a med school says, and not many of them, you won't hear them say they have cutoff GPAs, but if they do, and let's just say this med school's cutoff GPA, I'll make up a number to make it close just for my example, but let's just say they've said 3.35 is our cutoff. We will only interview folks with a 3.35 or higher. Well, this student, unless they took a post-bac with an undergraduate GPA, they would not be able to improve this above the 3.35. All right. And we can talk about this more at the Q&A about how this works. But I think this is important for you guys to see this because I think it's never just as simple as, and we're not even talking about life experiences, personal statement, interviewing. There's a whole other component to this that we're not even touching on. But I will tell you most of the time in a post-bac program, the most important thing a student needs to do is improve their grade point average. All right. So we talked a little bit about graduate programs and special master's programs. Special master's programs are typically um, at a medical school. So you'll usually see I'll use PCOM for an example, Philadelphia College of Osteopathic Medicine. PCOM has a special master's program. They usually allow you to enter the school at which they are based at more easily than you might if you were a broad applicant. So this might be something to look at. The other upside is that the end of a special master's program, even if you don't get into professional school, you get a master's degree at the end of it. So there is a benefit to that. But these special master's programs are a very narrow pathway typically to the med school that they're associated with. Also, a lot of times these special master's programs will recruit from their wait list or from their rejected candidate list. If they have someone that's really close and they say, I don't know if this person is going to be able to be admitted, they'll usually send out a recruitment email to say, you've got some work to do, but I think our special master's program can help you overcome those deficiencies. And you go to the special master's program, do well, prove that what you need to prove. There are also direct pathways to professional schools through post-bac programs through something called linkages. You may also see a linkage called an articulation agreement or a conditional acceptance. These three things are essentially all the same. If you hear someone say a linkage, and what this is, a linkage is an opportunity for you to enter a med school or a dental school or another professional school at which the post-bac program has an agreement with. And that agreement usually goes something like this. If student has a 3.4 undergraduate GPA, then that meets the first tick box for a linkage. Then if that person comes to the post-bac program, makes a 3.6 GPA in the post-bac program, along with a, 509 on the MCAT with subset scores of this, and this, then that meets the second tick box in the linkage agreement. And then the third part would be the interview, showing up, them talking with you, finding out if you're a good fit for their school, and that's usually the third piece of the linkage agreement. And if you meet all of those conditions, then you receive a conditional acceptance to the program that the post-bac program has an agreement with. Financial aid is also something to consider when you're looking at post-bac programs. I'll be the first to say our post-bac program, I think this is our biggest deficiency, is that we don't have nearly as much financial aid as we would like to provide. But there are a lot of post-bac programs that have financial aid based on your state residency, based on your financial status. They will use financial aid as a recruiting tool. And this is something to think about as well. I would also say, think about, when you're thinking about financial aid, think also about the physical location of where this post-bac program is located, because cost of attendance is one thing, but cost of living is another. And if the post-bac program is somewhere like New York City, San Francisco, somewhere like that, it can get pretty pricey. I've had students that have been accepted to our program, and then they've been accepted, for example, to a program in DC. And what we found is that when you crunch the numbers, even the financial aid package that they received to maybe go to DC doesn't offset the cost of living that they would incur by living in DC. Great. Yes, Wendy, we will talk about linkages at the end as well. Good. So applying to a program, there's a couple of ways to do that. The main way that I talked about before was Postbac Cast, but a lot of programs are coming on board with Postbac Cast, but many have their own proprietary application. And so you can just go to their website, find their app, fill it out, pay the fee, go. Postbac Cast does streamline things a little bit more, especially if you're looking at a number of Postbac programs. But the Postbac Cast application will ask you for the things exactly like what you would think. They would ask you for your transcripts. Those transcripts have to be verified. They ask for a personal statement, letters of recommendation, and then a resume or some sort of like accounting of all of your activities, whether those be jobs, healthcare, student activities, all kinds of things that you can include in that. But I want to talk a little bit here about interviews, because I think interviews are, I think this is probably the one part of the presentation where I'm a little more biased, is that I think interviewing is a really important part of this process. And sometimes if a program doesn't have an interview piece as part of their admissions component, it makes me worry a little bit. I think it's just really important for you to meet the people that you're going to be working with at the program, for you to meet other people that might be in your cohort, to check out the physical location if possible of the schools. It's been a little bit different for us this year because we've been doing everything like you guys have been doing them virtually. And so we had students that have been attending our program that have never even been to Philadelphia before right now. But I think it's still an important part just to make sure that people's mission fit matches the mission fit of what you're trying to accomplish at the school. Do programs that use Postbac CAS also allow students to do a proprietary, or are they mutually exclusive? So that's a great question. Some schools do allow a student to apply with either pathway, the proprietary app or through Postbac CAS. But most programs, it's going to be one or the other. At least in my experiences, I think mainly because Postbac CAS does a lot of the vetting and the verification of the transcripts for an office staff. So I know once we switched over to Postbac CAS, it made our administrative life exponentially easier by not having to sift through transcripts, vet the transcripts, do the grade calculations, organize all the letters of evaluation. So this is one of the reasons why we've decided to use Postbac CAS and stick with it. So it's a great question. All right, so Wendy, thank you for posing those questions. But I think now would be a good time just to, we've talked about a lot and I've kind of sped through it, but the reason I sped through it is because I really do want y'all to have the opportunity to ask me questions, allow me to maybe clarify some of these things. So I'm going to close out this PowerPoint presentation, but before I do, feel free to write down my name, email address. If you have any questions about our program or questions about Postbac programs in general, I'll do my best to help you. And I can't necessarily help you decide between programs, but I can definitely give you my best take on it. So if you guys want to jot that down, if not, I'll drop it in the chat later. But I'm going to get out of this super impersonal PowerPoint slide deck and try to get more into here where I can see everybody. So Wendy said she wants to hear a little more of examples about linkages. So I'll use our program as an example. We have 4 linkages, and linkages are with Temple. So we have a linkage with our own medical school here in Philadelphia. We have a linkage with George Washington University. We have a linkage with SUNY Downstate, and we have a linkage with Philadelphia College of Osteopathic Medicine. So those are the 4 linkages that we have right now. The difference is they all have different requirements for linking. So I mentioned that some Postbac linkage agreements may say, even before they get to us, a student may already be ineligible for a linkage because the med school may say a student must have a 3.4 undergraduate GPA to be eligible to link. And so a student may come to our program, and we always tell students this: don't come to our program if you're coming here solely to link. If that's your only reason why you're coming to our program, that's a bad idea. Primarily because I would say only about a quarter of the students, maybe a third of the students in our program, attempt to go on to medical school via a linkage. Most of them choose to apply what we call broadly, and they just apply to med schools across the country. And so, for example, it may say 3.4 as an undergrad, you get a 3.6 in our program, you get the 5.09 in the MCAT with the subscores, and it is a legally binding contract. And so what happens is, if a student says, if the contract for the linkage says you have to get a 5.09 and you get a 5.09, but they also say you must have a, minimum of a 125 in every subset, and you don't get that, then you're no longer eligible for the linkage, and there's no room for negotiation with that. And sometimes with our students, that can be heartbreaking because they've been working really hard. But I want to make a really important point here. If a student misses the opportunity to link, it does not mean that that student has missed the opportunity to go on to medical school. That just means that they will have missed the opportunity to seamlessly transition directly from our program into medical school, rather than go through our program for a year, apply